I'm Nanette Nokan, the host of It's About Money. In this edition, we'll be talking with Nan Hildebrandt, Executive Director of Jiva Theater Center, and Brian Doran, Annual Funds Manager at Jiva Theater Center. So stay tuned as we talk about fundraising and running a fundraising event. Nan, thank you very much for joining us, and Brian.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is fun, and you've been very busy doing fundraising for Jiva.
Yes.
And wanted to invite you to talk about running a successful fundraising event, because you've been running Summer Curtain Call, but it's only been a short number of years.
This is our 7th year.
Right, and it's been a tremendous success. So thought that we could share with the community the progress and the wonderful things
Sure.
you've done. So tell me, what are the key components of running a good fundraiser?
Well, organization, number one, getting the word out, having a cause that is something that appeals to a broad number of people, and believing in your product, I think are key elements of running a good fundraiser.
That sounds great. Should the event reflect the essence of the organization? In other words, it's an arts organization, Jiva. How important is that in terms of the event that you're running?
I think it's absolutely key
Sure.
that the event that you're running ties to the vision, the mission, the core values of your organization. Otherwise, there really isn't the emotional connection that an audience might have. So we always try, our fundraiser that we're having on June 1st is Summer Curtain Call. That's an event that supports the education and outreach programs at Jiva. And so it's very important as part of the program, as part of the whole atmosphere of the evening, that people know that what they're supporting is providing live theater for children who might not be able to come, and also just providing all sorts of educational activities throughout the year, really from cradle to grave, everything from programs for very young children to people who come to a prologue before a play.
Right.
So basically you have a mission in terms of the fundraising. It's not a general fundraising for the theater, but specifically for the educational aspects.
And outreach programs.
Okay,
right.
very good. What
Sure.
does outreach mean? What does that encompass?
Oh God, we have so many outreach programs. We have audio described performances. We have sign interpreted. What else, Nan?
We have the Enterprise Zone, which is a great teaching group that meets on Monday nights throughout the year. It's free to people of color, and they come in and learn from professional theater trainers about all aspects of theater, everything from script writing to acting to directing
Sure.
to putting on a production. And then at the end of the year, they do a showcase production of the work that they've learned during the year. We have all sorts of workshops in the schools for students. We have workshops at Jiva for school teachers who come in and learn how to use theater in the classroom. Sometimes it's show specific. We teach them how to link messages that are in the plays to curriculum that they're teaching in the classroom. So it's not just about theater classes or English classes, but even how you can tie science and math and subjects like that to theater.
That's great. That's wonderful. So then in Summer Curtain Call, how do you incorporate the educational aspects of that? What actually happens at this Summer Curtain Call program?
Summer Curtain Call is our gala annual fundraising event for education and outreach. So we make it be gala-like. I mean, it's supposed to be most of all entertaining and fun for people, but also showcase what their support does, what our guest support does, and allows us to provide during the year. So the event itself, our event, has a big tent out on the street in front of Jiva Theater Center. There's music, there's food, there's drink, there's strolling magician, there are all kinds of things that are party-like atmosphere things that include silent auction, raffles, live auctions, etc., that are part of the evening. But really the evening culminates with everyone moving into the main stage theater at Jiva, and Mark Cuddy, our artistic director, writes a show that's meant this year to celebrate everything that's good in Rochester. Now, how do we cast that show, and how do we get people to participate? We ask local celebrities from the business world, from sports, from the arts, and they all get a copy of a script that's especially written for this event that this year is going to talk about the things that are great in Rochester. It's loosely based on the story of Our Town, but it'll be really our town, the letter Theater are Rochester, and each one of those people that are in the cast will have a script, and it's a script in hand reading, but it's still semi-staged, and it's in a way a spoof, but a fun, good-natured spoof on things that happen in Rochester, featuring local celebrities from Rochester. You'll see Mayor Duffy on stage. You'll see everyone from Sandy Frankel from Brighton as a town supervisor, to Senator Jim Alesi, to Dennis Mullen, head of GRE.
And this year we have Brother Weeze from CMF Radio.
Which we're kind of excited about. That's a first for it. We often have media people. Brother Weeze, this will be his first time on Jiva's stage.
That's great. So some of them have talents, so singing, dancing.
Sure. Thomas Warfield, he's a very talented performer in Rochester.
Some of them do, some of them don't, Nanette, too. But that's even more fun because Mark actually includes them all in vocal numbers, sometimes even a little kind of soft shoe things. It's really a lot of fun, and they're really good sports about participating in it and not worrying that people might be making fun of them, but in fact that we're all enjoying seeing people who ordinarily have very different jobs, executive administration jobs or media jobs, but performing on the stage at Jiva for the benefit of education.
So it's really a unique event. Like, people who come to the event would not otherwise see this ensemble of local celebrities on stage and performing.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Unique. Okay.
And I think the idea of an event being unique is something that's really important to the success of an event. There are so many events in Rochester for very worthy causes, whether it's for a hospital or for a social service agency or some sort of healthcare cause, that there's a lot of competition. And you get into, or one can get into, sort of a rut of that there's always the same sort of, you're going to have a piece of rubber chicken and maybe some peas, and you're going to have some silent auction things.
Or we're going to play golf.
And we're going to do things that are just that get to be sort of old hat. And so we try to really shake it up every year and have things that really will be fun for people when they come, so they feel, A, that they get good value for the price that they paid for the ticket, but also so that they have a good sense of that they've invested in something beyond just buying a ticket to the event.
That's right. So in this case, they're supporting the education programs at Jiva. That's wonderful. And then you have silent auctions, items that
Yes,
you've
we'll
mentioned.
probably have almost 40 items this year. Really wonderful and unique things. Everything from gift baskets to spa packages to golf experiences to, gosh, Brian.
We have a gas grill, a bicycle, some beautiful jewelry.
Nice. That's
A
great.
beautiful teak patio set, a 12-piece patio set that Wegmans kindly donated to us that would look great on almost anyone's patio. And so things like that the community have been kind enough to donate to us, and we turn around and make them be bargains for people who want to invest in Jiva and education.
Now, when you talk about bargains, what's the secret there to raising enough money so that it's worthwhile? I mean, sometimes people go bargain hunting and you've got maybe a $500 item. Do you let them start bidding at $10? What is the magic in that to be able to
Setting
raise
a minimum bid. That
Okay.
generally helps. And then you can figure, even if you get the minimum bid, you'll know how much money you will be taking in.
Okay.
Now, granted, you want to get more than the minimum bid.
Sure.
But that can give you a base as to how much to expect.
So just kind of get an estimate of what that might be, and then hope for more. So okay, that's great. And now there's also a live auction that you do.
Yes, and that takes place on stage. Actually, Joe LaMonaco from Wham Radio will be our sort of auctioneer and host for the evening, along with Jennifer Johnson from TV10. And I think people will find some really unique experiences in the live auction. Typically, they're a bit more expensive things, but for example, we have one live auction item that's a really unique experience where 10 people will be able to come to Jiva's main stage, have dinner catered by Max of Eastman Place. On the set of Sherlock Holmes, The Final Adventure, we'll have a special guest from the cast who will be there with them that evening, and we have a number of the administrative staff who are going to be serving them in costume, and we'll craft for them a special murder mystery evening just for them. So that's sort of event that is unique to what we do. It's about theater, it's on the stage, but is something that you couldn't, you really is kind of priceless.
Sure, yeah, the advertisement says it's priceless. What a unique experience. So it's also formatted, sounds like, with whatever show production is being shown at Jiva, right?
Some of the
Right.
some of the live auction items are. We offer a walk-on role in Christmas Carol during the carolers scene, and that's been really fun. A lot of people have bought that over the years, and they actually are one night they're in the cast of A Christmas Carol and part of the crowd scene, and they have a costume on, and I mean it's really a unique experience for someone who maybe always wanted to be an actor but never had the opportunity to participate in a production.
Got it. So in terms of programming, it has to be suitable for the organization. Like you said earlier, there's a number of events that go on in town. You know, the summer is so short, the golfing season.
Right.
There's a lot of golf tournaments that happen.
Right.
So, but probably not an appropriate thing, not as appropriate as doing something that tends to be on the theatrical end, you know, like what you're doing with
Exactly.
Summer Curtain Call. That's great. Now, what about volunteers? How do you incorporate volunteers? I mean,
Couldn't
that's
do
a
it
big
without
job.
them. Absolutely couldn't do it without them. We have a number of volunteers at Jiva who work during the whole year as ushers, as salespeople in the gift shops. And then, of course, the board, in essence, are volunteers, and our board members are very helpful with this project. When it comes to the actual night of the event, they're really involved doing everything from passing wine to clearing tables to greeting people to helping with the setup of the live and silent auctions. All sorts of things, selling raffle tickets. I mean, you couldn't do it without volunteers because we really need a lot of hands and a lot of happy faces greeting people to make the event a success.
So everybody really pulling in.
Absolutely.
And the staff as well.
I was gonna ask.
Full staff participation.
That's great.
Crucial.
Yeah, you're right. If you're going to have a successful event, you want both sides, the team, the company itself, and then also the volunteers. And you mentioned board. Now, some organizations, many organizations, I should say, have their board members help run events like this, but in some cases they don't. What would you say is a good thing to do? Is a mix of board members and other volunteers, or do you have a suggestion with regard to that, or is it just, you know, somebody who's interested in their hearts in it?
I think it's really important to have a key board member who sort of owns the event, a chair for the event who's a board member who's really committed to the event. We've been very fortunate for the last 2 years to have Nanette Noken, our host today, as the chair for the event. And I think that it gives credibility to the other board members who are then volunteering their time if they see that this is something that the board as a whole felt was important enough to assign a board member to. And I think that the board member maybe carries a little bit more leverage also in whether it comes to encouraging other board members to buy tickets or to donate items for the auction. But I think that it really helps build a sense of team between and among the board, the staff, and our guests when there is a figurehead who's usually, certainly in your case, Nanette, a very hard-working figurehead. We don't really need just someone to put their name on the event to attract other people. We really need, at Jiva, a working board member to help us with the organization and recruitment of other people, and that's worked very well for us.
That's great. And then the contacts of the members of the group, the committee, and probably the board are also important or nice to have, right? Just kind of cultivate the contacts that they might have.
Yes.
Yeah. So now, in terms of getting donations and gifts, what happens there? Do you send letters? Do you make phone calls? Do you
Both.
go and visit?
Both. Sending a letter is great, but talking to an actual person, telling them what their donation is for, the event, the education, the outreach programs, and then just try. And it's actually kind of fun to sit around the table and think about, like, well, what do we want? Let's get a bicycle, or do you think we can get a grill? You know, so you just kind of like get a list of things that you'd want or places that support, and then you go after them.
I see. And then I'm sure there's a lot of great writers at Jiva who kind of write descriptions.
Oh, are we fortunate there? We actually have Marge Betley, who is our literary manager and resident dramaturg, very scholarly, very adept, very fine writer, who writes all our auction descriptions for us. I mean, the development staff works at bundling together different gifts to make really nice packages, and then Marge creates these great descriptions that, you know, even the words help sell the item at the event.
Sure. Very nice. That's great. Sounds like a fun event. Let's take a break for a moment. We're talking with Nan Hildebrand, Executive Director at Jiva Theater Center, and Brian Doran, Annual Funds Manager at Jiva Theater Center. We'll be right back.
There's something about you, baby. I got you looking at me, I'm gonna call you bluff. There's something about you, girl.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. It takes a man to be a dad.
What do you get when you cross a soprano with a cardiologist? Someone who'll sing their heart out. Just what they're doing at a local community theater. See, the Sopranos Choir and the Cardiologist Hospital contacted their community coalition and started a children's theater. They knew busy kids are less likely to try drugs. And that's music to everyone's ears. What can your group do? Contact your community coalition at helpyourcommunity.org. Because you get more
when you get together.
If you have any questions, please email Nanette at nnocon@aol.com.
All right, we're back. I'm Nanette Nocon, host of It's About Money. Our guests today are Nan Hildebrand, Executive Director at Jiva Theater Center, and Brian Doran, Annual Funds Manager at Jiva Theater Center. We're talking about running a fundraising event. So now this is really different. Running a fundraising event is different than an annual campaign where an organization asks money from their donors and kind of incorporate that in the budget as an ongoing thing, right?
Yes.
Specific event, kind of putting it together, everybody has fun, but also raises money at the same time. Yes. That's great. Now let's talk about, you've talked about some committee members. How do you get, in your case, you've been able to get some people who've been involved in the shows before to be involved in the event. So do you kind of work on trying to rein in some of the previous performers to get them to be involved in the event to some extent?
We've actually really learned a lot, and I hope every year we'll continue to learn more. The first year that we did the event, and that was 7 years ago, the idea was that you would have local celebrities be in the show, and then they would sell tickets to their friends who would want to come and see them on Jiva stage. We found that that really was kind of getting away from the mission of the whole thing, because in fact their friends didn't necessarily buy tickets and didn't necessarily come, didn't necessarily have an interest in education or in Jiva Theater Center. But as we've moved on, we see now that we're getting a little bit more of that, but also just involving people in the show who are representative of what your theme is and who have a history of speaking to what it is that you're trying to raise money from really helps. For example, last year the theme for Summer Curtain Call was based on the musical that we were doing at that time called Five Guys Named Mo, only we called Summer Curtain Call Some Guys Named Joe. And we had Joe Rulison, we had Joe Robach, we had Joe Morelli, we had Joe Klein from Klein Steel. That was a way of really involving some people who had connections to Jiva, but in a different way. This year, we again have people who represent Rochester because the theme is Our Town, or R for Rochester Town. And so we have people like Dennis Mullen, Senator Elise, Mayor Duffy, people from the media, et cetera. And I think that helps as far as who's on stage. We also always have a representative from the Summer Academy, one of the students who has graduated from Jiva Summer Academy on stage.
Yes, to talk about the program that they've gone through, or perhaps sing or perform. Right. Okay, that's great. That's really good. Now, I remember in '06, the program was with Maggie Brooks as the lead person and singing, and kind of, it's wonderful, brilliant how Mark Cuddy creates the script and involves everybody in the show. Right. I think that's really great. And you probably would never hear Maggie Brooks sing except for her program there. Right. So that's really nice. Now, so we have the people on stage, and then there's also the audience. How do you get the audience to come to the program?
Has to be fun, has to be entertaining, and you have to start way, way ahead of time. In fact, we really think that it takes a year ahead of the date of an event to start planning for the evening. It's all about how you market it, where you promote it, word of mouth, success of the previous year, so people want to come back again. Right. It's tough to build an audience, and we've been fortunate in seeing our audience grow each year, which sometimes an event can maybe just get a little stale, or get that people say, well, I've done that the last 3 years, I don't know that I need to go again. So you try to keep things fresh and keep finding new ways of letting people know about the event.
I see. And then you also talked about the people on stage and perhaps asking them to send invitations or notes to people that they might know. You know, one of the things that I found is that when you personally invite somebody to an event, they feel more compelled to come. I know that if I got an invitation, but it was just generic, sometimes I'd say, oh, yeah, maybe we'll go, maybe not. But if I got a call from a friend and said, hey, are you going to join me for this event? Then my husband and I tend to want to say, yeah, let's go. They're going to be there. So sometimes there's that connection.
Because you'll know somebody there. I think people don't want to go to something if they feel intimidated by the fact that they might have to go alone or not know people there or not know what's going on. And so we really rely on our board members and the Summer Curtain Call committee members to provide us a list of names that they think are friends of theirs that they're then willing to put a private note in to those people to help encourage them to come.
And actually this year what we did was that we had a core group of volunteers who called all of the people who we mailed invitations to make sure that they got their invitation and to see if they actually wanted to purchase a ticket right then and there.
Great. Oh, that's brilliant. So one more touch, so to speak.
Real personal.
Yeah, very nice. And then you have an invitation that you send out, right?
Yes.
And does the invitation look like typical invitations, or you kind of match that to your program? What do you usually do?
Well, if you're like everyone else in town, I think several times a week you get an invitation to something. And so I think it is important that your invitation stands out. But at the same time, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because if you spend a great deal of money on an invitation or have it look really flashy, that can be intimidating for people. People can think, well, gosh, if they have the money to spend on this very elaborate invitation, I don't know that that means that my money is really needed or is going to help the cause. So we walk a fine line with all of that. When you talk about getting things donated, if you can in fact get your printing services donated and or your design services donated, that's a huge expense that can serve as a nice way to recognize those companies that are donating an invitation or donating design time, and yet can really save you some money on the event.
That's great. And then this year you did, in 2007's event, you did something different, and that's not to send a response card with the invitation.
Right. Well, two things. Yes. No response card and no ticket.
Okay.
Their name is put on a guest list.
All right. So when they arrive, there's no tickets mailed to them. Just confirm that when you arrive, your name will be on a guest list. Okay. Yeah. And then how do you accept money then? I mean, typically, you open an invitation and you say, oh, I'll set this aside and I'll send the check later, or put my credit card there. Now, how do you accept the money?
Well, the invitation really clearly states how to order tickets. It tells you that you can order them online through Jiva's website, and it tells you that you can call the theater and ask for a member of the development office, and we'll take their order over the phone. When we then talk to them on the phone, they can, of course, either pay by credit card or they can let us know that they'll be sending in a check. And people have been very good about responding in that way. I think that, again, you look at the expense of the addition of a response card and the fact that the person has to take that step to send it back in. And we're just always looking for ways to sort of streamline the whole process to make it easier for people coming and easier for the staff and as cost effective as possible to make the event exciting. And that's why the invitation itself needs to really tell the story. It needs to say who's going to be in it, what it's going to be benefiting, obviously date, time, dress, sort of what's going to be going on that evening. But those things are all really an important part of the whole marketing plan or the way that you're promoting the event.
Because many times the party begins with the invitation. It sets the tone of what's going to happen.
Even before that, too, Nanette, we've sent out a save the date card, and we send that out several months in advance. Again, particularly in the time of year, May, June, July, people's calendars really fill up with weddings and graduations and other events. And so we send a save the date card that has the whole theme of the event. Really, the only information is to let them know. Back in February, we let them know that in June of this year, Summer Curtain Call will be happening on this date, and we want you to save the date for it.
Right.
So mark your calendar.
Right.
Mark your calendar now.
No, the dates have moved from year to year, but is there a general time that this is? June. Okay, so
we
June.
find that June works best for us. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of fundraisers, but June is a good time.
Yeah, and actually very fitting for the title of the program too, being Summer Curtain Call, towards the end of the season.
Right, and the whole curtain call idea of sort of the end of the big hurrah to the season. But again, you walk a fine line of the timing of an event. I think it needs to be really specific to the organization and held at a time that the organization can really put its best foot forward. In order to accommodate enough people, or to be able to accommodate the people who come, we've gone to having this big tent out on the street, and that kind of adds to the air of excitement as well. Obviously, a tent in December or January wouldn't be too practical. So sometimes we do battle a little bit with really warm temperatures or some winds, but it makes it more festive and more fun for us to do it in June when we can use the outdoors as well as inside the theater.
So for our audience, basically we've talked about the organization of the event, and one must start early. A year is not too soon to start. To have some sort of timeline, like in your case, June of every year, and it may shift, the dates might shift, but then it's always a Friday in June. And start the party with a nice invitation. And if you can get volunteers to do your graphic design and printing, that would be great. And then soliciting committee members and have a leadership role from board member that would move the program along.
I think one other key element, though, is actually corporate sponsorship. I think that for any event, you do obviously have expenses of food and liquor and decorations and things. And the more corporate support that you can get, the more sort of grounded and well-funded an event can be. We've been very fortunate to have some wonderful corporate sponsors, and that just makes it so much easier for the whole pressure on ticket selling, et cetera. And certainly our corporate sponsors have been very helpful in also just promoting the event and getting the word out to their employees. But I think corporate sponsorship really can make or break an event, because it really provides the whole basis of funding for an event. That's kind of the seed money, the very critical seed money that you need to ensure that the event is a success. In fact, ticket sales, though of course very important and you want to have people there, but would not ever, I don't believe you could have a successful event if your only source of income for the event was from the ticket sales or what you might make off of an auction. It's those corporate sponsors that really make the event be much more successful from a financial model.
Very good, very nice. And thank you. The reason why I invite both of you is because this model with the summer curtain call started out as a $10,000 fundraiser the first year, but the idea is brilliant and now has grown to over $100,000 in just a short amount of time. So it's a lot of work, I'm sure, but it's also a nice example on how you're not to give up on an idea that makes sense for an organization. So thank you very much, Nan.
Sure.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you, our guests, for joining us. We talked about running a fundraising event with Nan Hildebrand, Executive Director at Jiva Theater Center, and Brian Doran, Annual Funds Manager. Until next time, I'm Nanette Nocon.
Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, please email Nanette at nnocon@aol.com. Following production was produced through Penfield Community Television in Penfield, New York.